What It Takes Radio comes alongside another one of those TWiT Talks, transformation, wisdom, insight, and truth. And today, more and more, it's clear that we're getting it wrong about change in and with education. Let's talk about that in a real life situation. Hello, greetings once again for another adventure into something which we just have a little fun with. We call it TWiT Talks. TWiT. You've heard of TED Talks, which that is, technology, entertainment, and design. That's actually where the word came from. But TWiT, and we're not twits, but maybe sometimes we act like twits. But it's a way of saying a transformation, wisdom, insight, and truth. Those are things we would like to be transformed, changed by some wisdom, some new sights and new ways of seeing things, and about truth. Actually having it kind of like I have a little different pair of glasses now. My grandson wants me to have a little funkier glasses, but see things differently, or even be seen differently. Oh, you've got new glasses. Well, all of those are conversations that we have from time to time, aren't they? Well, what I'd like to talk about today is very simply something that came to me. It has been announced that President Trump, who has said that he was going to get rid of the Department of Education. Of course, that raised all kinds of controversies. But the news out now is that after about a year, they're pretty well sure of how they're going to restructure the whole Department of Education. And of course, that's a very controversial thing. And they're trying to see that there could be some new ways of doing education. And of course, with the technologies we now have, we're wondering if how much of that, and with artificial intelligence, or what I say really, it's not artificial. The term I use, it's aggregated, amplified, and in some cases, almost an arrogant intelligence. Better be careful about it, both in how you use it and how it uses you. So, what should education be like? What do you think? First of all, if you had a reasonably good experience with school, and of course, a lot of people don't, it wasn't good. If you had a reasonably good experience in school, what were the moments that made it good? Did you have some significant teachers? My wife has pointed out that she can't ever get over some of the things that she learned from an English teacher about how to construct grammar. It affects her even today. Yeah, and I think back to some of the teachers that I had, and how they did affect me. And of course, I also spent 13 years at least in public education, and it changed me in many ways, and I wonder how well I was at it. I finally decided that I didn't want to stay in the public education scene anymore. I saw some things that were developing, and I also knew that there were other things in my life, like radio, that I loved, and I wanted to pursue other interests, and so I did. But education has always been a part of who I am and what I do, and part of what I want to do is help educate people, but understand that education doesn't change anybody in any significant way. An education is not transformation. It could be, but not always. But here, remember, is an inconvenient idea. So this is short and sharp. A report card came for my dear grandson, and he didn't do well in a particular subject, which is science. And of course, that shocked his father and his mother and us, because he's incredibly curious. He really is, and interested in a lot of things. But what happened was that he wasn't being graded, it seems, on what he learned or what he was taught. The word that was used was output, that, filling in the workbooks, filling in the pages, completing the assignments. He was being graded on his output. Now, I'm not so sure we should grade ninth graders, 9-year-olds, maybe 19, finally on their output. We should be grading them on what they're learning and what they're experiencing, and hold them, of course, accountable to how they handle it, how they work with it, how they use it. But I'm not so sure the word output should frame the way we evaluate whether a child or an adolescent or a young adult is receiving a good education, and how that should be measured. And I also know that so many children learn so many different ways. Our grandson learns by reading and doing. He's not really very good at just listening and hearing. Now, that's part of the challenges of modern education. I just want to challenge you to ask yourself 3 questions. First of all, how do people change? If they get enough information and education, will that change them? If they are mentored by a particularly good person who helps them build their skills and their life awareness and their abilities to make it in the marketplace, is it sometimes a wonderful experience or a traumatic experience or something that's very challenging that actually changes people? I think we should perhaps live our lives and build our businesses and do our education in ways where all of us have at least an understanding, or what I would call a TOC, a theory of how change happens. How does it happen for us? And perhaps how can we best help others experience the kind of changes they want? And what I also know is that a TOC oftentimes requires a TOE, a touch of entertainment. That there has to be something that is necessarily entertaining, eventful, to actually have a good theory of education and of change. Well, that's just something I'd like us to think about. Because if we're going to make our mark in the world today, we may have to understand that a lot of our ideas are inconvenient and we need to deal with it. No, maybe it's not the content. Maybe it's the content of their character. Maybe it's the content of their awareness, of the joy they share. Maybe we should have different ways of evaluating the educational experience and accountability of young men and women today, and of young children today. And perhaps think that perhaps the way we've done it and the way we are doing it now, what if everything you thought you knew was wrong? As one of my friends said, I don't know if it's a good podcast, but it's a great title, because it's something we should always ask ourselves. There we go. Should I change my glasses or change them back? Thank you for your time. Thank you for your talent. Thank you for telling others. I wish you all the best and blessings. And by the way, I do know that best and blessings does in many ways help change people. Just let that kind of, as I used to say on late night radio, sit on your head for a while. Thank you for your time. Bye for now.